Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 episode number 113 based on novel. So let's start. Wang Chua squinted. If one looked carefully, her pupils seemed to have stretched vertically. Not only this, but her first and second soul rings also lit up. A layer of bright light suddenly shone from her body. A primitive aura that seemed to originate from ferocious, prehistoric beasts flowed out of her. The team members behind her felt the pressure on them dropping. Everyone from the Heavenly Sect Armor's team was horrified. They felt a sense of fear as they watched Wang Chua, who hadn't even competed yet. She was actually capable of taking on their 7-man fusion skill on her own. The most frightening thing was that her aura didn't pale in comparison to theirs. All of this happened within a short span of time. After their heavenly armor needles were combined, Han Jian unleashed their terrifying skill just as Wang Chua's aura started to soar. A thick beam of light shot up from the center of the heavenly armor shield. The spectators outside of the stage only saw the lights dim before a huge patch of ripples appeared on the stage. It seemed like the air had been set on fire. A dark red light shot out through the distorted air. The target of the red light was Wang Chua. Wang Chua quickly rushed to the center of the stage. Just as the heavenly armor shield was unleashed, she felt an intense suffocating feeling, like her body was on the verge of melting. However, her response was instantaneous. A streak of golden light lit up in front of her body as she let out a sonorous dragon roar. Following this, she stepped on the floor with her right leg. Her golden dragon spear turned into a ball of golden light that resisted the attack of the combined heavenly armor needle. Just as Wang Chua burst out, 2 others from Shrek's team also unleashed their soul skills. Ning Tian mimicked a lifting action with her right hand, and a dazzling rainbow-colored treasure pagoda surfaced above her palm. There are 7 levels of this 7 treasures glazed pagoda. First, speed. Third, strength. 5th, soul. Shrek Academy's inner courtyard students were obviously very strong. She used 3 soul skills at the same time, and they were all used on Wang Chua. The golden light from Wang Chua's body was beyond dazzling. Everyone had to admit that the number 1 auxiliary tool soul was the 7 treasures glazed pagoda, and this title had never been snatched away before. Besides Ning Tian, Cao Jinxian also moved. His first and third soul rings lit up. A huge illusory projection of a clock surfaced behind Cao Jinxian. The time on this clock reflected the real time. However, a blinding silver light then lit up on the dial of the clock. Following this, the second hand stopped for a moment before it moved back by a second. The entire stage seemed to have paused for an instant after the clock appeared. At this instant, 2 streams of blood flowed out from Cao Jinxuan's nostrils. His body shook, and he looked a little dizzy. In the air, the heavenly armor needle that was about to reach Wang Chua stopped, and strangely moved back half the distance that it had already traveled. A gap of more than 10 meters had been created between it and Wang Chua. Everyone was stunned by this strange scene. Even Huo Yuhao couldn't help but open his eyes wide, and he focused his gaze. Wang Chua had expected this from the start. As the heavenly armor needle moved back, Wang Chua leapt up using this 1 second of delay. She made a half-turn in the air, and her sonorous dragon roar changed to a piercing pitch. She raised her right arm behind her before she flung her golden dragon spear out. Her target was the beam of red light from the heavenly armor needle. Gold and red intersected in the air. The ripples in the air started to undulate more thickly. It was like a huge rock had been thrown into a lake. The red light from the heavenly armor needle continued to shoot forward. However, the streak of golden light tore through it as it did. A second streak of red light flashed past Wang Chua and collided with the red light from the heavenly armor needle. Although it dissipated instantly, it also stored the red light from the heavenly armor needle for a slight moment. Following this, the approaching red light converted into a huge dragon head that seemed like it was about to swallow the heavenly armor needle. Even though it was dissipated in the next moment, the light from the heavenly armor needle was also weakened by more than 25%. On the other side of Wang Chua, a huge ball of white light was unleashed, and accurately blocked the path of the heavenly armor needle. A series of noises dissipated another quarter of it. When it reached Wang Chua, only a third of its remaining strength was left. Wang Chua's third soul ring lit up. The golden light that she released was gathered on her right fist instantly, and turned into a golden dragon head. This was her third soul skill, golden dragon head. Boom, boom. 2 booms sounded at the same time. One of them came from Wang Chua's fist, while the other came from the heavenly armor shield. Wang Chua stopped in mid-attack only for a brief moment before her right leg slammed down on the floor again, making an indentation several square meters wide on the metal-layered floor. She was like a golden cannon shell as she burst forward. On the other side, the combined shield was broken into 7 pieces after the golden dragon spear drilled past the heavenly armor needle. The 7 pieces revolved in the air, trying to combine once again. However, Wang Chua was too fast. Before they could do so, she was already close, and her right hand grabbed onto the golden dragon spear that had flown back to her. She swept the air before her with her spear. A golden light flashed, and 3 of the shields were instantly shattered. 3 of the Heavenly Armor Sect disciples screamed pathetically. They were gravely injured as their martial souls were destroyed. Wang Chua didn't seem to stop at all. Her golden dragon spear turned into lights that filled the sky. As these golden lights shone down, the remaining 4 disciples felt as if Wang Chua was attacking with all her might. The 4 shields didn't have a chance to recombine before they were forced back. Wang Chua's body flashed again before she landed beside 2 of them on the left. On the right side, Xia Huanyue and Dai Huabin had already arrived. The Heavenly Armor Sect's team was completely dismantled after their fusion skill failed. Team Shrek didn't go too hard on them, either. They only defeated the Heavenly Armor Sect's team in the fastest way possible and ended this team fight. Beneath the stage, Han Zhanwu was completely shocked when he saw this. He couldn't believe that their fusion skill had been overcome so easily. It was too much. To many people, Wang Chua was the one who had done everything on her own. From the first step she took, everything seemed to have been decided. The entire process couldn't have been any faster. Wang Chua was like a goddess who controlled the entire proceedings, defeating her opponents with the simplest fighting strategy. The Heavenly Armor Sect's team's fusion skill seemed very weak. If not for the fact that it was astonishing the moment it was unleashed, everyone would have forgotten about it. Wang Donga was a little pensive as she softly said, "They're much stronger than we thought." Hua Yuhao nodded gently and said, "Let's hope we don't meet them." He knew better than anyone else, since he was the one with spiritual detection. He was also the clearest on what happened in the entire process. That's right. Wang Chua had appeared to be extremely strong throughout the fight. However, she wasn't the decisive factor. Her 2 teammates behind her were the decisive factors. Why was Wang Chua able to easily defeat her opponents even when they unleashed their fusion skill? It wasn't because her opponents weren't strong. It was because the 7 Treasures Glazed Pagoda was behind her to enhance her strength in all aspects, allowing her cultivation to soar to the level of a 7-ringed soul sage. Cao Jinxuan's time-elapsing clock had also reversed their opponent's skill and created sufficient time for her. It wouldn't have been easy for Wang Chua to deal with the fusion skill alone, even though she was extremely strong. Their coordination right now wasn't the same as it was when they sparred with Shrek's 7 monsters earlier. Whether it was their individual fighting strength or team fighting strength, they were much better than before. They were like a complete unit now, and Wang Chua was the core of their unit. Hua Yuhao was very familiar with those from Shrek. Whether it was Dai Huabin, Wu Feng, or Ning Tian, they were all talents in the younger generation. However, they possessed a very defining trait of a talent, arrogance. However, it seemed like they had retracted a little bit of their arrogance. It was almost impossible to spot that arrogance anymore. It was also precisely because of this that they could come together as a unit. It was also why Hua Yuhao's expression had turned serious. With Hua Yuhao's understanding of Wang Chua, he knew that she would give her best if they met in the tournament. They were bound to compete against one another in terms of their abilities. However, Hua Yuhao wasn't very willing to meet them in the tournament. His team was both familiar with them, and they were very strong. Before Bei Bei recovered, he was even more unwilling to meet Shrek's team. The first fight of the second elimination round ended. Although Shrek Academy didn't win by a landslide, they still demonstrated their strength. This was especially true for Wang Chua. Her performance in the team round caused all the other team leaders to turn dismal. Of course, the expressions of the Holy Ghost Sect's members couldn't be seen, since they concealed their faces. The tournament continued, and the next few fights were very intense. In order to qualify, every team gave their best. There were many casualties in this second elimination round. The bloody smell coming off the stage also grew stronger and stronger. "Let's return," Hua Yuhao said to his teammates after looking up at the sky. "You are not watching anymore?" Shu Sanxia was a little stunned as he glanced at Yuhao. Hua Yuhao shook his head and replied, "We've seen what we need to. There's nothing much left to see. No matter who our opponents are, we'll have to give our all, right? Let's return to rest." As he spoke, he gestured for Wang Donga to push his wheelchair. Although Hua Yuhao wasn't the oldest among them, he was the stand-in team leader since Bei Bei wasn't around. No one questioned his words. Everyone stood up and left the venue silently, returning to the Mingyu Hotel. They were competing tomorrow. Their opponents weren't well known, and were from a sect too. They didn't have any information regarding this sect, and they didn't notice this sect in the first elimination round either. However, that didn't mean that their opponents were lousy. After returning to the hotel, Hua Yuhao called his teammates to his room. In the tournament, they had a meeting room they could use. However, they had to make do with this for this round. "I'll talk about tomorrow's strategy briefly," Hua Yuhao began. Shu Sanxia laughed. "Are you planning to compete first and continue all the way until the end?" Hua Yuhao shook his head as he smiled and replied, "It's different from the previous round. There were many competing teams then, and we had sufficient time to rest. From this round onwards, the time between each successive round will be shorter. We must try our best to conserve our fighting strength. After all, we don't have many substitutes. In fact, we should learn from Shrek's strategy today. None of them depleted too much of their energy, but they still fought to warm up their bodies. They kept themselves in their best physical condition for the team round. Tomorrow, we shall follow their strategy. Third senior, you'll fight first tomorrow. What do you think about this arrangement? Shu Sanchi's eyes brightened, and he said, great idea. However, don't you want us to conceal our true abilities? Huo Yuhao chortled and replied, you only have 2 opponents to defeat before you concede defeat. Are you really going to reveal your trump card in those 2 fights? Of course not, Shu Sancha said proudly. Huo Yuhao laughed, that's great. Second senior, you'll be the second to compete. You'll fight 2 of them also. Xiao Xiao, you'll be the third to fight. You'll only need to fight 1. Fourth senior, you'll fight 1 person only too. Dornga will be last, and she'll take care of the last person. Nana looked a little pitifully at Huo Yuhao. After hearing that she had no role, she lowered her head. Huo Yuhao chortled, Nana, haven't you realized that we'll have to lose a few fights in the individual elimination round with such an arrangement? The final fight will be in the team round. You'll have your chance then. In the team round, I'll have to rely on everyone else. I'll only be the main controller of the team. Nana lifted her head again and subconsciously said, Master, I have no objections to any of your arrangements. After hearing the word master, everyone's expressions turned a little weird. Huo Yuhao also felt very helpless. He had corrected her many times, and struggled to get her to call him by his name. However, there were times when she wasn't careful, and still called him master. Nana didn't find anything wrong with this, since she was very grateful to Huo Yuhao. Not only did Huo Yuhao save her parents' souls, but he also gave her a new life. He was her benefactor. Huo Yuhao coughed and said, Seniors, please return to rest. Nana, stay behind. Shu Sancha stood up and patted Huo Yuhao's shoulder. He shot him a weird look and softly said, Yuhao, you must control yourself since you're already in this state. Wang Donga could hear him clearly even though he was trying to speak softly. Besides laughing bitterly, what else could Huo Yuhao do? Everyone else left, but they wore weird smiles on their faces. Only Wang Dong didn't smile. She walked to one side and poured a glass of water for Nana. Thank you, mistress. Nana received the glass respectfully. Wang Donga felt very helpless too. Sister Nana, please don't call me that. I can't take it. We are senior and junior from the same sect. Yuhao has helped you before, but everything's already in the past. Don't tell me that you won't help us when we are in trouble. Don't be too bothered. Okay. Nana acknowledged her words naturally, but it was evident that she didn't take them in. Huo Yuhao knew that there was no point trying to convince her. He didn't bother doing so. Nana, how's your progress on the matter that I wanted you to investigate? Nana turned serious, and a look of fear flashed across her eyes. She nodded gently and replied, yes, you're right. It's them, I'm sure of it. I wouldn't forget their aura even if I turned to ashes. It's them. It must be them. Huo Yuhao nodded and said, right. You've verified my guess. The Holy Ghost sect is the Holy Ghost Church. Don't be afraid, everyone will protect you as long as you remain with us. What about the other thing? How's the contact? Nana said, I went to 3 black markets, and only the biggest one says that there are goods available. However, the details have to be discussed. Furthermore, their asking price is very high, and they are difficult to deal with. Huo Yuhao smiled and said, it's okay if the price is high, as long as the goods are available. Before the war starts, we must prepare. Continue to maintain contact with them and bargain. After that, set a time to meet. I'll meet them. Let's do it this way. Continue to contact them a further 3 times and let them sense our sincerity. After that, purchase some samples. All right. Nana acknowledged his words. Huo Yuhao said, you should return to rest, too. Take care of your safety when you are alone at night. If you can't handle it, ask for help from Sister Xian or Brother Ji. After all, they are people who can't handle loneliness. All right. Nana regarded herself as Huo Yuhao's servant. After acknowledging his words, she turned around and left. She closed the door behind her after she left. Wang Donga asked curiously, who did you ask Nana to contact? Why don't I know about it? Huo Yuhao smiled and said, have you forgotten that my spiritual power has reached the concrete immaterial realm? I instructed her a few days ago. Since we are here at the Sun Moon Empire, we can't leave empty-handed. We've found some big clients. At the same time, we are going to purchase some goods. Wang Donga was intelligent. She immediately thought of something, and asked, rare metals? You asked Nana to search for rare metals for sale on the market. Huo Yuhao nodded, my love, you are really intelligent. Come here, I'll reward you with a kiss. Wang Donger's face turned red, and she said, "Stop fooling around. Let's get back to proper business first." "All right. Since you've agreed, I'll wait until we are done with proper business first," Hua Yuhao said with a serious look on his face. "Since when did I agree?" Wang Donger asked in embarrassment. Hua Yuhao chuckled and said, "You said that we should get back to proper business first. Naturally, that means that we'll get to improper business after that. Let's get back to proper business. You're right. I want to buy some rare metals." Seeing Hua Yuhao's serious face, Wang Donger snapped as she pulled his hand toward her. She bit the back of his hand. However, she bit very gently. This was evident from how Hua Yuhao enjoyed her bite. "Can you buy rare metals in the Sun Moon Empire? They're war resources now," Wang Donger asked doubtfully after she finished biting him. Hua Yuhao smiled gently and asked, "Why not? As long as you have the money, nothing is impossible. It's because rare metals are considered war resources that they're very expensive. But this also means that selling them is very profitable. Some people will be interested in such profits. Furthermore, they are bound to be authoritative figures. This time, our two clients have accepted very expensive deposits. Gold soul coins are only useless, expensive metals. What we need are rare metals that can be continuously converted into wealth. Storing metals is better than storing money. That's why I plan to purchase rare metals." Before we left, Eldest Senior brought all our liquidated money. That includes the funds we gained by selling the Zhuge Divine Crossbow to the Academy. Along with the payments that Princess Joju and Princess Wei Yane gave us, the money that we have is quite substantial. Wang Donger was a little worried. "However, I'm afraid it'll be very troublesome to purchase rare metals here. What if we don't get the goods even after paying up? Even if we get the goods, can we return safely?" Hua Yuhao patted her hand and said, "There'll always be a solution. Trust me." "All right," Hua Yuhao said, "we are done with proper business." Wang Donger naturally stood up and said, "I'm going to wash my clothes." Hua Yuhao wouldn't let her go just like this. He pulled with her right hand, and she landed on his thigh. She didn't struggle, and only buried her embarrassed head in his arms. She didn't struggle because she was afraid of hurting him. After all, only his right arm out of his 4 limbs could move. "My love, just a while, all right?" 10 minutes later. "Didn't you say it would only be a light kiss?" "I'll consider it a kiss after I'm satisfied." "When will you be satisfied?" "I'm unsure of that." After the Continental Elite Youth Soul Master Tournament entered its second elimination round, it became more and more intense. The remaining 84 teams went all out against one another. After the first day of the second elimination round, 21 teams had already successfully qualified for the next round. After this successful qualification, they already had one foot in the round-robin stage. That was because 42 teams would emerge after this second elimination round. Although the next round was still an elimination round, the bottom 21 teams had to compete with one another in terms of points so that the best 10 teams out of these 21 teams could be selected for the next round-robin stage. It was already very prestigious for a team to enter the round-robin stage, as it wasn't an easy feat. The second day of the second elimination round. The Tang sect's fight was arranged for the afternoon. They didn't go to the tournament venue in the morning, instead remaining in the hotel to rest. Bei's injuries seemed to relapse and become more serious. This also cast a shadow on the Tang sect's match. After eating lunch, they rested for a while, and then embarked on their journey to the venue as it came closer to the time of their fight. The resting area was much less crowded, and it no longer felt packed. But the number of spectators continued to rise. These last few days of intense competition had left them more and more excited. Hua Yuhao had set their strategy yesterday, and thus he had nothing to tell them today. In the VIP resting area, his attention was drawn to the other teams that were in the area with them. He was surprised to find that he couldn't ascertain which team was representing the body sect. The team that he had been monitoring had been eliminated yesterday morning. With the body sect's abilities, it wasn't possible for them to make such a low-level mistake, so he had to search for a new target to monitor. The Holy Ghost sect's team weren't there in the afternoon. They had competed in the morning, and had already advanced to the next round. Although no one from the Tang sect watched their fight, they could roughly guess that it didn't last too long. In contrast, Shrek's team came to the VIP resting area to watch the fights even though they had already qualified for the next round. Undoubtedly, they were here to watch the Tang sect's fight. Hua Yuhao could sense Wang Chua's cold and level gaze looking at him when she sat down. He smiled and nodded at her. However, he was greeted by a cold expression. He couldn't help but touch his nose, feeling that he had been sharply rebuffed by her. On the other hand, Wu Feng, Dai Huabin, and the others were watching the Tang sect very closely. Their expressions weren't very friendly. It was easy to see their intense competitive spirit from the look in their eyes. Hua Yuhao shook his head helplessly. "Is there a need for this? We are all from the same academy." He was in a good state right now. Of course, he hadn't forgotten the deep hatred that he concealed in his heart. The Holy Ghost sect didn't come. Hua Yuhao sat where he was and rested his eyes. He circulated his mysterious heaven technique and fused with the origin energy of ultimate ice in his body. Even though he could only strip off some of the origin energy, it was still better than nothing. Such a continuous fusion was also the safest and most stable method. It was finally the Tang sect's turn to compete after the fourth fight in the afternoon had concluded. Tang sect versus the Ironsword sect. Competing members from both teams, please enter the waiting area. The first competing member from each team, please enter the stage. Everyone from the Tang sect stood up as the referee called for them. Wang Dong'er pushed Hua Yuhao in front of everyone and entered the waiting area with the rest. Even though Hua Yuhao had defeated all his opponents on his own in the previous round, the Tang sect was still an unknown sect. The attention they received wasn't much. The deepest impression the Sun Moon Empire's citizens had of the Tang sect was probably Hua Yuhao's wheelchair. Shu Sancha leapt up and ascended the stage, walking briskly to the center. Ironsword sect. This was an extremely unfamiliar name to the Tang sect, but they definitely possessed some quality if they were able to pass the first elimination round. The first competing member from the Ironsword sect was a young lady. She had a slender figure and a refreshing appearance. Her long black hair drooped behind her back. Her charm wasn't lost amid her beauty and gentleness. Shu Sanchi's eyes widened as he saw that his opponent was a lady. He subconsciously swallowed his saliva. Beneath the stage, Hua Yuhao muttered, "Did this Ironsword sect research us? How did they know that the best way to deal with third senior was by sending a beautiful lady to fight him?" Jiang Nanan's cold voice caused Hua Yuhao to shudder. He quickly shut his mouth and prayed as hard as he could for Shu Sancha. After a brief moment, Shu Sanchi's expression regained its normalcy. He walked to the center of the stage. Before the referee even said anything, he reached his hand over and said, "Beautiful lady, how are you? I'm Shu Sancha from the Tang sect. I'm usually called. He wanted to tell her about some mighty nickname that he had, but he was as speechless as he usually was when he saw a lady. This lady didn't expect her opponent to be like this. Seeing his awkward look, she couldn't help but laugh. In terms of looks, Shu Sancha and Bei Bei had different styles. However, they were both handsome. The lady reached out with her right hand to shake his hand and said gently, "What are you usually called?" "I'm Wang Chengxi from the Ironsword sect. Please have mercy on me, senior." Shu Sancha was still aware that Jiang Nannan was here, and so didn't grab her hand tightly. However, his face was still filled with a grin. Of course I'll have mercy on you. What do you think I should be called?" Let me think. Eternal Defense. What do you think?" Eternal Defense. Wang Chengxi was stunned, but she revealed a smile after that. "Great. It sounds impressive. Are the two of you still competing?" The referee shouted, as he felt that the two of them didn't care about his presence. He took a step forward and separated them. After that, he skipped the explanation of the rules and pointed to the two sides of the stage. "I'll see you later." Shu Sancha made a sneaky gesture at Wang Chengxi. He used his right hand to sweep his medium-length hair before turning around suavely. Wang Chengxi was still wearing a smile on her face. She was apologetic as she nodded at the referee. After that, she turned around and walked towards her end of the stage. Shu Sancha felt his body turning rigid as he walked towards his side of the stage. He immediately turned in the direction of the cold intent that was being projected towards him. He saw a pair of big, beautiful eyes. "Oh shit. I got too immersed." Shu Sancha shuddered. As he walked to his side of the stage, his expression turned very cool. After that, he gave Jiang Nannan a thumbs up and softly said, "I was bewitching my opponent earlier so that she would be unable to see my true self." Jiang Nannan didn't say anything. The defensive light barrier was soundproof. Shu Sancha turned around in a cool manner. After that, he saw the referee lifting his right hand up before swiping down. He stopped fantasizing and quickly rushed in Wang Chengxi's direction. Dazzling rings started to rise from his legs. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, black. When his 6 soul rings rose, the spectators around started to exclaim. 6 rings. He actually had 6 rings. Even the most clueless spectators knew what 6 soul rings represented. The abilities of a soul emperor. It was very rare to find soul masters that were soul emperors. Since he was on this stage, it meant that he wasn't 20 yet. For him to achieve such a cultivation at his current age, it must mean that he was a great talent and a truly strong competitor in this tournament. A team with at least 1 soul emperor should be able to reach the quarterfinals in this tournament. Who would have expected the unknown Tang sect to possess a soul emperor? In the previous round, the 5-ringed Hua Yuhao took down 7 opponents single-handedly. In this round, the Tang sect sent a 6-ringed soul emperor to compete first. Everyone saw the Tang sect differently now. Wang Chengxi hadn't expected the guy flirting with her to be a soul emperor. However, her smile didn't disappear. She took small steps as she advanced towards Shu Sancha. However, no one could see the coldness in her eyes. As she lifted her right hand, a pitch-black iron sword appeared in the air. Rings of light also appeared on the iron sword. There were 2 yellow and 3 purple rings. This was a rather good combination of soul rings for an ordinary soul master. Furthermore, she was also a soul king. However, this was nothing in the eyes of a truly strong soul master. The two of them got close to each other very quickly. To make amends for his mistake earlier, Shu Sanxia shouted, "This is a duel between sword and shield. Come on." As he spoke, he lifted his shield of the Xuanwu turtle and swept it towards Wang Chengxi. Wang Chengxi smiled, and she stopped for a moment. After that, she jumped to one side, and her sword flashed with a light. Suddenly, a streak of black sword light was formed and shot towards Shu Sanxi's shoulder. Shu Sanxia wasn't too bothered. His footsteps became faster, and he made a simple turn. At the same time, he pulled his shield back and blocked the sword light. A crisp ringing sound rang out as the sword light struck his shield. Shu Sanxia leapt forward quickly and pressed his shield forward. He didn't unleash a soul skill, but instead used his dense soul power and physical strength to knock into Wang Chengxi. He was very sudden, such that Wang Chengxi was unprepared. Her sword was lifted into the air as she was pushed. From the looks of it, she was about to be struck by the shield. Wang Chengxi reached her left hand forward. She grabbed her sword with two hands now and pressed it against the shield. She tapped into the forward momentum of the shield to lift her body into the air. Her movements were very elegant. As she exerted strength with her hands, she leapt into the air. At the same time as she passed Shu Sanxia, she flexibly turned her body and reversed direction. The sword light from her sword started to shine very brightly. The sharp sword aura engulfed Shu Sanxi's body from the back. She pressed her sword, leaping into the air and launching a counterattack. It was an eye-opener. Shu Sanxia turned from the active to the passive party. However, he was very experienced, and had seen many types of situations before. He didn't panic at all. Wang Chengxi saw things blurring in front of her before Shu Sanxia miraculously used his shield to block his back. All the sword lights were deflected away, and none of them struck him. Those who were watching the fight intently noticed that Shu Sanxi's shield turned along with Wang Chengxi as she leapt into the air, even though he hadn't turned himself. However, it appeared very abrupt because his shield was scooped up from the bottom. Wang Chengxi's sword light struck nothing again. However, her smile seemed to become wider. Her sword started to shine very brightly, and a layer of icy blue started to engulf Shu Sanxia, coming from the third light ring that lit up on the sword. The icy blue glow quickly engulfed Shu Sanxia. At the same time, a black glow started to spread from the shield of the Xuanwu turtle. It spread out like exhaust gas, dispelling the icy blue glow. Wang Chengxi was also engulfed by this exhaust gas. It was Shu Sanxi's first soul skill, Mysterious Underworld Quake. The difference this soul skill had from the past was that it now seemed to have its own intelligence. The strongest quake wasn't unleashed at the first moment, but covered Wang Chengxi's body instantly. It was only after this that the immense force of the quake was unleashed. Wang Chengxi was stunned. She suddenly felt very restrained fighting against Shu Sanxia. Her outstanding fighting experience didn't seem to be useful here. Even her most confident skill had been seen through by her opponent. Shu Sanxia gave her a lot of pressure as he unleashed his soul skill. The fifth soul ring on her sword suddenly lit up. Wang Chengxi grabbed her sword with both hands, and her body started to squirm. She was even calling out softly, painful. However, who knew that Shu Sanxia wasn't moved at all? The immense force from his mysterious underworld quake was instantly unleashed. Not only that, but a pitch-black glow shone from his body. The surface area of his shield doubled, and the strength of the mysterious underworld quake suddenly soared. Thousand-year soul skill, mysterious underworld force. A light flashed from Wang Chengxi's hand. It was destroyed as a tremendous vibration struck her. Her fifth soul ring, which was on the sword, seemed to have been completely destroyed, and she was flung away by the strong quaking force. The lights on her sword suddenly turned much dimmer. Shu Sanxia didn't follow up his attack. However, Wang Chengxi could hear him muttering, screaming in such pain, "But your soul ring is still bright." That was too hypocritical. A pale glow was released from Wang Chengxi's body, which she used to resist the quaking force. As she supported her body with her right hand, she bounced straight back up. "You really don't know how to take care of girls," a whining voice sounded out. Shu Sanxia was displeased as he said, "What do you mean, I don't know how to take care of girls? I'm only protecting myself. Even if I want to take care of girls, I'll need to prioritize my own life first. Am I right, Beauty? Are you still attacking? If you aren't, you can leave the stage. I don't want you to complain that I'm not taking good care of you." Wang Chengxi pursed her small lips and replied, "You haven't won. If I leave just like this, how can I account to my sect? Let's go again." As she spoke, she burst towards Shu Sanxia again. This time, she seemed even more elegant, and was also much faster. Her long, black hair danced with the wind. Shu Sanxia didn't rush forward. He actually retreated one step, then lunged forward. There was a smile on his face. He was indeed very fond of ladies. However, they would be in trouble if they thought that he was brainless and tried to harm him. Wang Chengxi suddenly leapt into the air when she was 5 meters away from Shu Sanxia. She made a turn in the air and stabbed out towards him, both hands on her sword. Her long swaying hair followed the movements of her body, appearing like a full, black moon. Shu Sanxia didn't retreat or advance. He stood where he was and focused his gaze on Wang Chengxi's body. Her fifth soul ring lit up again, and the blinding lights from her sword were very clear. A black sword light was directly separated from her iron sword. It was completely black, but it released an intense silver light. Before the sword was even unleashed, its aura was already cracking the air with its sharpness. At the same time, Wang Chengxi's black hair started to transform. It grew longer, and turned into black snakes that whipped towards Shu Sanxia. Not only this, but she also lifted her head suddenly, giving Shu Sanxia a shock. While she had appeared very gentle and ravishing earlier, she was now very pale. Two fangs poked out from her mouth, and her eyes were completely white. Two streaks of pale white light instantly shot from them towards Shu Sanxia. The spectators couldn't see these two streaks of light clearly, as they were masked by the snakes. They could only see Shu Sanxi's body being engulfed by countless snakes. Sword light, snakes, white lights. 3 different attacks were unleashed at the same time. Shu Sanxia was astonished as he shouted, "Twin martial souls?" At this point, the white lights from Wang Chengxi's eyes had already shot towards him. Shu Sanxia squatted down and used his shield to protect his entire body. He allowed the 2 streaks of white light to hit his shield. Suddenly, he felt his shield becoming heavier, as it had turned into a massive rock. Following this, the countless snakes started to converge towards him from all directions. The sword lights were already in front of him too. Beneath the stage, everyone from the Tang sect couldn't help but get nervous. Wang Donga exclaimed at almost the same time as Shu Sanxia, "Twin martial souls?" Hua Yuhao shook his head, and his expression didn't really change. Just when everyone thought Shu Sanxia was in deep trouble, something weird happened. The air distorted, and suddenly Shu Sanxia was displaced from his position, and Wang Chengxi replaced him in his original position. None of her attacks managed to strike him. It was his 4th soul skill, the mysterious underworld displacement. It was this skill that had created several miracles in the last tournament. Shu Sanxia wasn't merciful anymore. A ball of black light was unleashed from his shield, a snake on its surface. White lights shot out from its blood-red eyes, which reconverted his shield back to its original state. Following this, his shield turned into projections in the air. The snakes that came towards Shu Sanxia were once again forced away by these projections. Shu Sanxia followed his shield. His speed soared as he burst forward. He held the main body of his shield and was about to ram into Wang Chengxi. At this point, there were 5 more soul rings on Wang Chengxi's body. 2 were yellow, 2 were purple, and the last one was black. The 2 purple soul rings were still shining brightly. As her snakes continued to burst forward, her body also turned soft like cotton. Her skin was even replaced by a layer of scales. She retreated quickly. Her 5th soul ring also lit up again at the same time. A pale white color covered her eyes once again. Medusa. This was Wang Chengxi's stronger martial soul. Her 5th soul skill was called Medusa's Gaze. It was a pity that she was facing Shu Sanxia. His martial soul wasn't just simply his shield of the Xuanwu turtle. His shield had undergone a mutation. The Xuanwu was a combination of a turtle and a snake, and it was the most outstanding water-type martial soul. Her Medusa's Gaze was completely curbed by the aura of his shield. As long as it didn't directly strike Shu Sanxia, it was impossible for her to have any effect on him. Her cultivation was also inferior to his, and he wouldn't turn to stone just because she gazed at him. Trying to escape. Shu Sanxia snorted coldly. The shield projections in the air started to converge. If the Heavenly Armor Sect's team hadn't left, they would have been embarrassed by how Shu Sanxia used his shield. The shield walls formed by Shu Sanxi's shield of the Xuanwu turtle turned into a cage under his control, and Wang Chengxi was trapped within. 2 streaks of blood-red light shot out from the snake's eyes on the surface of his shield. As they struck Wang Chengxi's Medusa's Gaze, they destroyed it. He was also moving forward again at this point. Wang Chengxi's body jerked back as she retracted all her snakes, but she then burst forward again and collided head-on with him. It was a pity that her abilities were still far from his. Her snakes were destroyed, and she was completely trapped by Shu Sanxia. She groaned in discontent. He watched Wang Chengxi from close range and used his shield to block off her Medusa's Gaze. Shu Sanxia shook his head in loathing and said, "You look really good, but why do you have to make yourself appear so disgusting? It's a pity. I almost thought that you had twin martial souls. It seems like that isn't the case. You are quite smart, but it's a pity that you met me. Don't worry, I take good care of ladies. Concede defeat now." This video will end here. Thank you for watching.